rights, and now we're talking about the Nigerian child, the fate of the Nigerian child, how the Nigerian child is being treated on a day-to-day basis, the policies sustaining them, and what can we do to make sure we alleviate some of the challenges they're facing. I'll read you this background. 1 in 5 children in Nigeria reportedly dies before the age of 5 due to minor preventable ailments that have long been eradicated in other countries, while yet others have been orphaned due to AIDS-related diseases or intertribal wars, or as a result of activities of insurgents. Now, it is estimated that over 2 million girls are subjected to genital mutilation every year, a practice still rampant in some parts of Nigeria and within religious groups. Now, intervention in the practice is considered as a violation of privacy, yet many girls face several health risks through this. Also, this has also been exacerbated by the abduction of the girls. A lot of people are wondering, what are we doing to support our children? We have 3 fantastic guests in the studio today. They all work with children. I will start from my left-hand side. It's Mrs. Gani Martins. She is Assistant Director, Children's Services at Salford City Council, England. Thank you so much for coming on the program. And I also have Kendi Aig-Imoru. She's the Project Coordinator, Hope for Life Initiative. I bet this is in Lagos, right?
Yes.
Great. And also have, that's to my right, I have Ikotun Josephine. She is Head of School Redeemers Foundation. Is that correct? I would like to seriously start from my left. In your own opinion, are we doing as much as we should be doing to protect the Nigerian child?
No, definitely not.
Why?
I've came here since last week, where we had a conference on protecting children, child protection conference, and there was over 200 people came. It was organized by Africa. I mean, what I've seen is actually quite shocking when I've been here with regards protection of children. There is a law, I believe, in Nigeria, the Child Rights Act, and clearly that is not being implemented. I've also read in papers about children being sexually abused. I think you talk about female genital mutilation before, which is clearly against the law. There is a United Nations Convention of Human Rights that's clearly against abuse of children, but clearly Nigeria is not doing enough. There is so many children that I've seen suffering, whether with regards to not having education or regards to just basic protection, neglect, physical abuse. All these things are against the law, but clearly the government is not doing anything to actually prevent it, to enforce the law.
I mean, I think the thing wouldn't be that the government isn't doing anything. Maybe that the government isn't doing enough. But I will come back to that. Okay.
I was going to just very quickly jump in there and say that, would you think it is right to say the government is not doing anything as a result of not seeing any infrastructure or resources being devoted to it, or just because there's a lack of will?
I think maybe, they are, maybe I should correct that, they are doing something, but clearly it's very, very small. I mean, the government is not prioritizing children's needs, children's rights. Clearly there was a Children's Day earlier this week, and that was celebrated. But for me, that is far too little, really. The government needs to prioritize. The government needs to invest in children's education and in child protection. So the infrastructure is clearly not good enough.
What have you seen since you've been in Nigeria? What have you seen in terms of the infrastructure, the resources, the people? You're coming from a part of the world where there is top priority. In fact, at times it seems like there's so much sensitivity about children to the extent that some parents think in the UK that the country is becoming a nanny state. But in a place like Nigeria, you see virtually an extreme opposite of it. What is it you see as lacking that you want to point to?
I see as lacking the implementation of procedures. I know that there are procedures with regards to protecting children, but the government is not enforcing it. There is no enforcement, from what I've seen, of the Child Rights Act. That's just really very basic. I've seen, sort of children should be going to school on a daily basis, and I've been here for a week. There are school-age children not in school. So that is just really very, very basic. And I've also read, as I've said earlier, in the newspapers, cases of children who have been sexually abused, children who have been raped. It's reported in the newspapers. And, clearly there is no enforcement of the fact that that is clearly wrong, that is child abuse.
Let me speak to Candy. You work with children. What would be your assessment of the experiences of a Nigerian child?
Wow, putting it mildly, it's a huge problem, and the Nigerian child is facing a very, very difficult situation and living in an environment that is practically not catering for his or her basic needs. You find that the Nigerian child is, you look at the Nigerian child and you find that the child is living in an environment that is just saying, where am I going to? What does the future hold for me? The Nigerians forget that if they don't look after the children, the future, there's going to be no Nigeria tomorrow. But you see, the Nigerian child that we work with on a daily basis, they have issues. The issues are varied. And you find that first of all, the Nigerian child will say, I'm at home, my parents are looking after me, but where do I go to? What am I going to what's going to happen to me? And you find that too, the Nigerian child is saying, oh, there's no security. There's no security for the Nigerian child. There's no, the problems are, you just look around and you say to yourself, what is going to happen tomorrow? What is going to happen to that child?
Okay, let's ask Josephine Ikotu, as head of school, in terms of protecting and securing children. Take the example of your school. How do you do it, and what do you see happening across the board? How do we even try to secure our children? Do we protect them?
Well, before we came in, I was discussing with Mrs. Gani, and recently we are doing a research in my school about the child protection policy. It's ideal for all schools to have that policy in place, and in Nigeria, is not really, enforced, like she said. It's not monitored, it's not enforced. Most school owners just, start schools. They don't bother about whether the protection of the child's security is not really part of the agenda, as it were. Yes, they might have wonderful curriculums, wonderful scheme, but the protection, the security aspect is, not really touched. So in our school, what we are doing is we are creating that policy. We are doing research to ensure that the policy is all encompassing. And what is this policy about? Ensuring that children are guarded against abuse, all form of abuse. In fact, in Nigeria, in the past, in public schools, even up to now, we find out that teachers, the discipline approach in schools is very terrible. They could use cane, they could abuse children with that.
And this still happens in schools now?
In public schools, yes. In private schools, most private schools say no to caning.
Is that outrightly no a good thing? Because some people they've also faulted that when you don't discipline a child at all, what do you expect of such a child?
Well, when you discipline a child, right now in my school, we ensure the rule there is ensure the child understands the purpose. Why am I being disciplined? Why am I being punished? And why we have to remove the caning aspect is because most times it becomes something like transferred aggression on the part of the adult. Maybe the adult has one psychological problem at home or one family issue, and the child does something and that aggravates the anger and it uses it on the child. But with caning, it can really be.
Okay.
It can be.
All right. But I wanted to ask you, it's been said that 1 out of every 5 children in Nigeria is out of school. Do you think education is expensive in Nigeria? Especially for the children.
Well, no, I wouldn't say it is because
Categorical no.
yes, we're looking at public schools, what the government is trying to put in place. Over the years, we've heard about schemes for free education. I think the problem is not, being monitored. Really, government just bring policies, create policies, free education, and all that, and they don't send inspectors around or officials to check the streets. Yes, this education is free, but are the parents making full use? Are they optimizing this opportunity of free education for their children? And also,
Yeah.
sorry, also working in public schools, really, the standards in our public schools too is not really encouraging, and that's why you find most people going to private school, and then private schools are expensive. So
Okay. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also the issue of poverty, because obviously if the government is making education free, some parents may not be able to technically afford for the children to go because they want them at home, maybe to do some errand for them, or maybe to do some business in terms of manning shops and everything like that. So I think the government needs to actually tackle the issue of poverty, as well as making sure that every child go to school. There could also be the issue about what they call, yes, the education will be free, but school uniform and all the other things actually support a child to be in school. So
Okay.
it needs a
That's good.
holistic approach.
Holistic
Yes.
approach sounds like a very good idea. But one of the things that Josephine mentioned that I wanted us to look very deeply into, securing and protecting the children. From your background in the United Kingdom, you know that the teacher's work goes beyond just teaching ABC 1, 2, 3. Is also being sensitive to that child and being able to pay enough attention to discover that this child went home safe and sound and fine yesterday, and suddenly there are marks all over the child's body. And once that is identified, an agency of government is asked to look into it so that that child who's being abused at home is given some amount of hearing and listening to, and also finding solution to it. Do you see anything like that happening in Nigeria, and what do we need to do to protect them in that way?
I mean, I think what needs to happen is training, because I think what happened, as was said earlier, what happened was that
Training on behalf of the teachers?
Training, the teachers need to be trained to be aware of what child protection is. I mean, we've heard, you were talking earlier about children being caned in schools. That is abuse. There's the United Nations Convention of Human Rights that says children should not be beaten. But if you have teachers beating them, that is abuse. Teachers need to be sensitized to looking at what child protection is, what physical abuse is. And I think also children as well need to know that they can talk to somebody. They have a right to protection. They can talk to their teachers. They can talk to anybody with regards to their protection. So if abuse is happening, if a teacher notices abuse, for example, like you're given in school, the teacher needs to be able to report it to somebody who can actually enforce it. Again, the